Rivian tries to hide yet another issue, and really for no good reason at all. This time trying to mislead one of the biggest automotive publications only days before having to recall all of their vehicles with a potentially huge problem of their wheels separating from the control arm, something that we in this industry call not good. To sort out through this mess, I will be joined by the host of the State of Charge YouTube channel and a brand new proud owner of a Rivian truck himself, Tom Moloughney. And as always, we'll take questions from you, my live audience, and we're going to start right now. Welcome to E4 Electric, where I reveal the truth behind the electric car headlines. And oh boy, today is a good day for that. If you're interested in either, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. Oh boy, Rivian, it is so hard to love you because originally, when I started writing the script for this video, this was going to be a positive video. The title for this video, I put it somewhere here, it was Rivian finally turning things around, because they really are. There are a couple of really good news that came out in the last few weeks, and I wanted to talk about that. However, by the time we got to today, the scheduled live stream, a couple of big issues came up. So we got to talk about that. But before I do, I really do want to cover the two really good things that happened to Rivian in the last few weeks, because they really are turning things around. And let's start with the fact that in the third quarter, they did deliver over 6,500 vehicles, which means in total, they've delivered about 13,000 of them. That's good news. They were having some major production issues, and it does look like they are turning things around. Now, the bigger, better news is that Rivian said that they are going to keep their annual guidance at 25,000 vehicles. Now, as you remember, Lucid, that was kind of in the same boat that Rivian, starting the production at the end of last year, actually went downhill, and their production issues really had them lower their guidance twice. And really, we don't know if they're going to meet even their lowest guidance, though there's a report coming out in the last few days that Lucid is making about 50 vehicles per day. So that's still possible. But Rivian is actually kicking butt. So they are saying they will deliver 25,000 vehicles by the end of the year. If they do, this is excellent, excellent news for Rivian. But there is more good news, because in the last several weeks, they started delivering their SUVs. Before that, they were just delivering their electric trucks and the delivery vans for Amazon, which is a lot already. But they started delivering the R1Ss, and I've actually seen a couple of them out and about already, driven by customers here in the Silicon Valley, and that's the SUV. Now you're probably saying, Alex, you're a little behind on this, because they started delivering those back in December. Rivian told us that. Now, that is true. Rivian did tell us that. But if you look at that tweet, you will see that there were only two delivered, and not to the customers, but to RJ Scaringe, who is the CEO, and the CFO. Since then, they have not delivered a single one of them to an actual customer until the end of August. Now, of course, we can talk about why Rivian continues to communicate things that are not, true, but we'll discuss it later in the show. The point here is they are now delivering all three of their vehicles within only about a year of the beginning of the production, the R1T, R1S, and the Amazon delivery van. And despite all of the issues that they've had, and boy, they had a lot of issues this year. If you watch this channel, this is really, really good news for Rivian. Unfortunately, this is where it ends, and I wish we would have spent the entire video talking about it, because I cannot emphasize enough. This is a really good turnaround after a really difficult year. However, we got to talk about the big recall, and you're probably saying once again, Alex, you're behind. That recall of the safety recall of the seat belts have happened all the way over there back in September. You also would be right. However, there's a brand new one that was issued only a few days ago, and this is pretty brutal. Because did I just spit on my camera? Okay. I am salivating about how disastrous this thing is, though it does look they're gonna take care of it. And Tom, who's coming on in a few minutes, already had his done. From what I understand, he'll talk about it, of course, himself. Now, this time around, all of the over 13,000 of vehicles are being recalled. And the problem is with the upper suspension arm, where the wheels can actually separate from the control arm. And I know this does sound kind of like the Toyota issue where the wheels were coming off. Well, these wheels are not really coming off, but this can really result in some major accidents. Now, there are only a few instances of this even happening, and everybody is okay, which is great. And kudos to Rivian for recognizing this and issuing the recall. It looks like they're going to be taking care of it swiftly. Now, this issue is not very new to electric vehicles, because Tesla had this issue for a long enough time, and it was a big enough issue that not only it got its own name, which is Tesla Wampy Wheels, but also got its own website where users were posting pictures of the Tesla wheels separating from the control arm, as you can see. And this is something that I would say I'm not very surprised by, because Rivian has had very similar issues in manufacturing as Tesla, because originally, until recently, the guy in charge of their manufacturing was the same guy in charge of manufacturing at Tesla during the production hell. So the fact that Rivian had the production hell and now having very similar issue to Tesla is no surprise. However, they did correct this. They now have hired a former Magna exec who was in charge of electrification at Magna, very much successfully so, and that's why you see this turnaround. Now, there is actually a picture of a Rivian, and unfortunately, I don't know who to credit this images to, because it was reposted several times. F the Pump was the one that posted last. It looks like the issue that Rivian is now having a recall about. There is no way to confirm, unfortunately, but this appears to be it. And again, Tom will talk a little bit about it, because he has already had that taken care of. Now, let's move on to the second issue. And I can't emphasize enough that this would be a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. And, Tom has been driving around his neighborhood all morning trying to reproduce this problem. And we'll post the video, and we'll show you guys the video that he taped. But let me tell you what happened. And then things did not go sour until Rivian's PR department jumped in, which is really the bigger point of this video. Now, what happened is, Edmunds, one of the biggest automotive publications, had one of their staff members driving one of their in-house vehicle, which was Rivian truck, and all of a sudden they started losing power. The truck came to the complete stop. They had issues restarting it because there is no on-off button. But at the end of the day, they got it restarted. Nobody got hurt. Everything was okay. And they published this article that you're looking at right now, and reached out to Rivian. And this is where things have kind of gone sour. But first, Rivian response was that this was a driver error, which it appears to be. So what happened, it looks like they were using the cruise control, and then they accidentally exited the cruise control, did not notice that, and then tried to change the setting. And because the cruise control was already off, and it's the same stock that's responsible for cruise control as it's responsible for gear shifting, they shift the truck to neutral and didn't notice that. And that's the stock. Now, if you ask me, I think it's ridiculous that Rivian designed it this way, and Nitsan, DMV, and everybody else allowed it. The stock for the gear shifter, one of the most important controls of the car, should not be shared with anything else. Definitely not with a sub feature of cruise control. Tesla has this as well. I think it's the only other example I can think of, which again is not a good example of a brand taking care of their customer safety. However, it is what it is. I disagree with the design. But again, it would have been a non-story until Rivian's PR department jumped in and started answering. But by the way, let me just point one more thing out. The staff members of Edmunds, that's kind of their job to drive around these cars, right, for a living, because that's what they do. So if it happened to one of them, it probably can happen to someone else. And even though it really was a driver error, if driver error can happen to another person, it can cause potentially a dangerous situation. I really would love for Rivian to basically say, you know what, let us do a few more focus groups and see if this really is a problem. That's not what they said, because when Edmunds asked them, saying, "Hey, listen, was there anything that we could have done to notice that this shifted to neutral, some sort of a visual alert or maybe a sound effect?" This is what they said, and let me just quote here. Per above description, multiple audible and visual indicators were given to the driver. And this is answering the question, is there any obvious warning that we could have overlooked that shows the vehicle has shifted into neutral? Now, then Rivian started talking about the disengaging of the cruise control. But this is not true. There is no audible or visual representation when you shift to neutral. Let's look at this video that they taped.
No gas, nothing. Stay up here, watch this. No warning anytime.
Nothing.
Okay, so as you can see, and the reason we kept the sound on is because you did not hear any chimes, you did not hear any messages. Now, here's the thing. No car has any chimes or messages, right? If you get into your car and you get to the highway speed and you try to shift it to neutral, it will. Now, that's probably an issue that should be looked at some point, but that's not the point here. The point is, why would a Rivian rep suggest that it does? Because as you can see, they jumped back into the truck and were able to reproduce this and say that is not true. Tom will play Tom's video once he comes on, him trying the same thing. So, all right, now let's go on to the second part of the quote, which is almost as ridiculous. So it says, to move to neutral was only possible after moving the stock up and holding it for 200 milliseconds, which is 0.2 seconds. This is to protect against incidental activation of neutral. Okay, first of all, it looks like Rivian's PR department has the same standards for their grammar as Rivian has for manufacturing. Okay, so this is not incidental, this is accidental, completely a different word, and this is coming from this guy who can barely speak English. However, there is a recall for that, and here it is, Rivian's PR department.
Grammarly, helping you connect. Go to Grammarly.com to download.
You are welcome. All right, but to the point, and this is something that Edmunds have replied to Rivian right away, saying 200 milliseconds. It takes to blink. It takes 300 milliseconds, which is true for a human eye to blink. On average, it takes 300 milliseconds, which is longer than Rivian suggests that the gear shifter has to be held to shift to neutral. Now, by the way, when you shift it all the way up and all the way down, it does give that alert, except for when you just tap it. And again, as Rivian call it, hold it. But you can't really call it a hold if it takes less than blink of an eye. Though I have to say, as I looked at this video and then Tom's video, that when he sent it to me earlier today, it looks like it does take a little bit longer than 200 milliseconds, which again questions me if Rivian the PR department knows anything about the truck, and it is not enough to prevent the incidental shift to neutral. So once again, non-story that only created a story when PR department chimed in. And of course, immediately the question is, why would you be making incorrect statements to a big publication or really any publication when it can be reasonably and quickly disproven? I'll talk to Tom about that. I have some theories. He had some other theories. That's why I have him on. But let me mention one more thing that just came up literally this morning. There are reports, so I don't really want to report it yet as 100% done. But there are reports from some customers that Rivian may start charging for towing, even for the issues when it is a warranty repair problem. I hope that's not true, but if it is true, boy, we're going to have to make another video. Hopefully not. But here's what I want to say before I bring in Tom. Rivian had a lot of issues this year, right? And more than we probably would have preferred. And I am rooting for Rivian. They are definitely an all-electric company that I want to succeed, and they will. By the way, they will absolutely succeed. They have to take a responsibility with the way they communicate. I don't understand why the issues that we all, journalists, customers, just innocent bystanders will all understand it's their first year of manufacturing their electric vehicles. Everyone's got problems. What Rivian does differently is that somehow they try to lie, intimidate, and hide things that really don't need to be hidden. Like in this case, this is a non-issue that Rivian PR department somehow made an issue and made people, at least like me, and I think everybody should be questioning why. And yes, you're right, Ron. There's first-year glitches. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, though. Like I said, the hiring could have been better. But why do all of this deception? I really don't know. And, at some point, the buck stops with RJ Scaringe, right? The CEO of Rivian. He really needs to take a responsibility. He did hire the incorrect person to run the manufacturing. He did hire the incorrect person to write the quality assurance. He definitely hired the wrong PR department that, again, could use Grammarly with their replies. But let me bring in Tom Moloughney, the host of the State of Charge, and we now shifted him from Sundays to Wednesdays. He owns the truck. He's been driving all morning trying to reproduce this issue. He's got, as always, one of the best opinions and knowledge in the industry. So, Tom, welcome to the channel once again. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Alex, how's it going? I'm doing fine. You picked a good guest to be on this week because I have the truck and I have experience driving it. And as we'll find out soon, I have strong opinions on this.
Yeah. Okay. So first, let's look at the video that you taped this morning. Essentially, it's the same thing that you tried as Edmunds tried to basically reproduce about like what happens when you gain speed and then try to shift it to neutral. This clip has sound. So AJ, let's cue it up.
Okay, so I'm in drive now, and if I try to push the gear shift up into neutral quickly, it tells me to keep holding it to shift to neutral. I can see the reverse neutral drive selector there, and there's a green line on the side because I was in regen. If I accelerate, it's in a blue line. So now what happens when I hold the shifter up for a little bit longer? See, I just hit it quickly, and I got that warning again. If I hold it now it jumped into neutral. Now that semicircle went away and the N is pronounced. If I try to give it some acceleration, nothing happens. But there's no warning if I try to give it some acceleration. So now I'm going to drop it back into drive. Now we're back into drive. And I have a little bit of a turn here.
All right. So that's pretty much the gist of it. All right, Tom. So, it's first of all, it looks like there is a warning if you kind of hard press on it, and there is no warning if you kind of hold. But Rivian PR guy said it was 200 milliseconds, but it to me felt like it was a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, so I'm not a millisecond guy. I don't know how to figure out. I don't have a watch to time it that best. But what I can tell is, as a user, it feels right. It feels like you have to hold it there for a specified period of time for it to go into neutral, long enough where it's a deliberate move, and as you can see, if I just kind of push the gear stalk up for a moment, it doesn't go into neutral, and it gives you the warning. It tells you, hey, hold that thing longer if you want to go into neutral. So to me, and it works exactly the same as my Tesla Model 3. I had two Model 3s, and they have the stalk, that's the gear selector. It also shifts to neutral. It also turns on the cruise control. So the Rivian ORT works exactly the same as a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y. And I think the S also, before they put the new yoke in. So to me, when I got my Rivian, it was very natural because I had been using this for the last 3 years, and it operates exactly the same.
Okay, so let's kind of discuss the point that I'm trying to make here. Do you agree that this is a driver error and really not that big of a deal, even though we may disagree about whether or not this feature should be part of that stock? I mean, driver error here, correct?
It is, Alex. And, but I'll give the guy from Edmunds a little bit of a break because we drive, when you're a journalist, you get to drive multiple vehicles, sometimes in the same week, 2 or 3 vehicles. And I've made mistakes before, even like in my written articles, I'll say this does this or that. And then readers will say, wait a minute, Tom, no, it doesn't. I have that car. And then I'll say, oh my God, you're right. That was the car I drove yesterday. But I admit it. And I say, hey, I was wrong about that. I made a mistake. Because when you drive multiple, and all these cars work so differently, they're all computerized. So yeah, it was driver error. The driver just was not familiar with how that works.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Do you believe that it is probably not the best design to put cruise control or really any other feature to share the same control with such an, if not the most important control of the car, which is, the gear shifter, where you can have this cruise control on the wheel, on the screen, on a different button? There's so many other places to put it in. Do you think it's just irresponsible at the end of the day, as far as customer safety is concerned, to have this shared for no really good reason and potentially create a problem? Because if this person was able to get in trouble with it, then it's possible the others can too.
I don't, Alex. I don't see a problem with it. There's over 2,000 Teslas, 2 million Teslas on the road now that have driven billions of miles. If this was a legitimate safety problem, it would have come out. We would have seen accidents, we'd see reports, we'd see people suing Tesla. That in itself, to me, proves it's not unsafe. And I don't have any issue with it personally.
All right, now let's talk about this whole Rivian PR thing. And honestly, maybe Rivian should just take a page out of Tesla's book here as well and just not have one, because to me, they have consistently made things worse. That really, even though all negative stories could have been very much, sort of classified as like, listen, growing pains, it's a startup and it's fine like this. Now, I showed, and maybe we can bring up this slide before, is why in the world would a Rivian PR department, tell, Edmund's journalist, the writer, that, there will be a chime, there will be a message displayed when you shift to neutral, when that's just not true and it's easily verifiable? Why?
So if you could throw that graphic back up there, I think the important thing here in Rivian's response is per above description. You read this as they're saying that you get these multiple audible warnings when you put the car in neutral. I don't read it as that way. If we could go back to their previous response, I think what they're saying is, look, we explained this situation to you. The driver inadvertently exited the Rivian's autopilot, the version of their ACC system. When they did that, they got an audible alert. And they should have realized, hey, wait a minute, something happened here. I'm not in the cruise control anymore. They thought they were still in ACC. I don't know why they were trying to slowly push the gear selector up. When you turn it off, you push it up all the way, or you just tap the brake. Clearly the driver was just not operating the vehicle properly.
But
and I don't have
has
an
already
issue
been
with
resolved,
response, Alex.
No, I get it. But listen, that's not what the question was. They've already conceded to that. At that point, they basically were asking, hey, and again, let's look at it again. Hey, is there something that we've missed when we switch to neutral? Now, don't get me wrong. That's a bit of a weird question, because nothing happens in any car when you switch it to neutral. But this is a new company. This is hopefully new ways of doing things, a little bit more high tech. So if we can bring it back to the screen, you'll see that they're asking specifically. This question is all about shifting it to neutral and not at all about the cruise control. That issue has been already resolved, because as you can see, this is question number 4 in the previous 3 questions. So how do you answer one question? They're either trying to answer a different question and not realize what it is that they're answering, or they just blindly lying. Which one is it?
Well, you can interpret the answer any way you want. I'm interpreting it as they're going down this list of answers. They're like, okay, as per our description above, the driver got multiple warnings. They should have realized they were no longer in ACC. So that's how I interpret that answer to the question. I don't interpret them as them lying and saying that they get an audible alert when you shift the car to neutral, because the vehicle doesn't give you an audible alert, and I would expect Rivian to know that.
Well, Okay, so by the way, let me just reply to quickly. So Dave C says, Alex, you seem to be reaching for fault in Rivian. We get it. You don't like them. Dave, you might want to actually, watch the beginning of this video because I've already mentioned this. So please pay attention, watch the video so you don't put out silly comments like this. I actually was making a positive video about Rivian until they made it into a negative video. I actually do like them. They do need to succeed, and they're doing very well. I was glad to see them turn things around. However, my job here, Dave, is to protect you from bullshit because that is what a lot of multi-billion-dollar corporations do. I don't know why people jump on their side, especially being consumers, but I don't like them. I'm nothing Rivian. I don't care about Rivian. What I care about is Rivian drivers, and this seems to be a case where they're being bullshitted, and it's my job, honestly. Dave, you have your job. I have my job, and it is to call that out. So that's why we're having this conversation. Let's talk about the recall, right? You just had your truck actually already get the upgrade or whatever they had to do. It was very quick from what I understand. Talk a little bit about your experience getting this fixed, but more importantly, how bad is this issue?
Well, what I got in the email was they said they had identified 7 vehicles where the bolt either came loose or fell off. That picture of that truck that you showed earlier, that's the only one that I know of that I've heard of or seen where it appears that the issue actually made the wheel separate from the upper control arm. In the other instances that I've heard of was that the bolt just loosened. It hadn't come off. And some of the vehicles going into Rivian service for, let's say, another problem, they found that this bolt is loose, and they're like, okay, there's something wrong here. We shouldn't have 7 vehicles where this bolt loosened up. So they realized that I guess the initial engineering called for the bolt to be torqued to 70 pounds. And that's what either a human or a robot, whatever does it, torques it to. So what they realized is that's not enough, because under driving stress, hitting bumps and everything, it's going to loosen up. So now the recall calls for them to torque it to 120 pounds. So it's significantly more, almost twice as the pressure as what they had been doing it originally. And, so I got the email last week, and I called up, and they scheduled me 5 days after I called them, which was this morning. And Rivian truck pulled up to my house. They did the service, and I had to turn the wheels to the right, put the vehicle up to the highest suspension, turn the wheel to the right, and then the guy just reached in and just crank, walk to the other side, crank. Okay, see you later. In like less than a minute, he was walking away. So that seems to be what the fix is.
All right. So, and I'm glad, but it does seem like a relatively major issue if it's not taken care of. So kudos to Rivian for taking care of this. Mark here says, can we get a video of Alex kissing a kitten? This is a members only type of a video, Mark, but I'll see what I can do for you. All right. So here's another one that I actually wanted to kind of address in continuation of what we're talking about, Tom. The inconvenient gamer says these multi-billion-dollar companies don't need any cheerleading. If they make a good product, they should do good, and when they don't, they should be called out for it, no matter the company. And Tom, I feel like you're by far the most honest and independent journalist out there, and tell me if my view on this is in any way flawed. But a while back, I realized that I'm not a fan of Tesla. I'm not a fan of Rivian or Lucid or Volkswagen or Fisker. I'm a fan of people who are consumers. And I never understood this cult-like thinking that Tesla is the company that needs help and they need defending, rather than them, the consumers. I mean, the video that I just posted with the Model Y, poorly made, obviously, with a squeak, just embarrassing squeak from the steering wheel. People who own a Model Y, that video was to advocate for them, and yet they were the ones jumping down my back saying, how dare you, Tesla is perfect, my Model Y is great. I don't understand that mentality, but at the end of the day, I care about them, no matter much how they end up actually hating me, but I care about them because they're consumers, and I don't care about Rivian or whatever multi-billion-dollar corporation we're talking about. What's your take on this, Tom?
So, I mean, first, thank you for calling me the most honest and independent journalist. I am honest and I'm independent, but there are a lot of other journalists that I know out there that do a fantastic job and are honest and independent. There are some that aren't, but a lot of them I know are. So, but thank you for saying that. So, Alex, this is nothing new. I remember back in the days where it was Ford versus Chevy. You probably weren't even in the U.S. at that point, and it was Mustang versus Camaro, and your cars were crap and our cars were the best. You talked about you're surprised that Tesla fans attack you if you point out obvious shortcomings. You know what fan is short for, right? Fanatic. So that it's appropriate term. They're fanatics, and I did a Tesla Model Y a video back when it first came out. I got one of the first ones in New Jersey. A friend bought it, and while I was reviewing it, the speaker fell off the driver's side passenger door. And I even took some heat for people criticizing me about that, like pointing it out that the speaker fell off. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't bother me. You should just let it roll off your shoulders. That's what you're going to have. These people are fanatics. They love the product. They want to defend the product, and you're not going to change that. It's always been that way. It's just now Tesla's the new, company to really, go Google over. What bothers me more than being that way about Tesla is the blind faith people have in Elon Musk, like he's a god. And that I think maybe gets under my skin, that he could do nothing wrong when he, criticizes people for trying to save kids in a cave and calls them, pedophiles. That bothers me much more than people saying, oh, my Model Y is perfect, when we know it isn't.
I absolutely agree with you. All right, Tom, we are way out of time. Thank you to everybody who watched, obviously. Thank you for all of the super chats. And this, I have a pile of cash now to work with Chipotle. I might even get a donut on the way back to my car. I will get a donut. Anyway, Tom, once again, it's great to see you. Just for those of you guys who don't know, Tom is now on every Wednesday rather than on Sundays. I think this is even better because I love, chatting with him live. Tom, once again, thank you so much. And I will see you next Wednesday. Yes?
Very good. See you Wednesday, Alex. Take care, everyone.
By the way, if you want to see the video about where I talk about how I ended up getting banned with Rivian, I'm going to put it up there on your screen, and I'll put a link in the description of the video when I repost this, when it's a little bit condensed. We do that on Thursdays. All right. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm looking forward to all of your comments. Other than that, see you guys next time. And remember to stay charged.